Good evening, welcome to the Goffstown Capital Improvement Committee meeting. We are a subcommittee of the Planning Board. We'll begin with introductions and we'll start with the Assistant Town Administrator.
Good evening, everyone. Assistant Town Administrator Danielle Basora.
I'm Jim Raymond.
Jim Craig, Select Board Rep.
Colleen Mayu.
Tim Redmond.
Samantha Kearns, Budget Committee Rep.
Brad Parkhurst, Community at Large Rep.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. We are going to change the agenda slightly tonight to accommodate one of our presenters, so the Police Department will be up first.
I'm on the wrong page.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate that, Mr. Chair.
Before we begin, everyone had resubmitted police capital improvement summary worksheets to put into your binder tonight. We're not using the ones that came in the binder, we're using the resubmitted ones. Chief, it's a normal procedure for you to get your name for the record, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, everyone. Chief Eric Serino, Goffstown Police Department.
Thank you for coming. I will start the meeting with everyone, all three presenters, that we would like to hear about anything for 2025, whatever you'd like to tell us. But for brevity, we'd like to not have long presentations for the projects in the out years. If you'd like to touch on them, we'd be happy to hear about them, but we do not want long presentations because they're not actually germane to what we're doing at this time.
Perfect.
Chief, I'll ask you to begin, sir.
Thank you very much. So, 2025, a lot of our CIP stuff is the same as last year, just kind of a different year and a different number. So for 2025, once again, we are going to be asking the CIP committee as well as the Select Board and Budget Committee to grant us to purchase 3 new vehicles, as we've been doing for over a decade now.
Excuse me for interrupting, that's line 5 under town vehicles on first page of your matrix. Please, all right.
All set, thank you. This year, for 24, we went to default budget, so we were not able to purchase the new Tahoe Chevy Tahoes that we were looking to buy this year. So we are submitting again to the Budget Committee, CIP, and Selectmen to purchase 2 Tahoes and 1 Ford Interceptor police car. Again, I'll keep it short, but for the people who don't know the speech on the vehicles, they are our officers' offices for 12 hours. It is our lifeline of driving around and answering calls for service and serving our community. Every year, when we're lucky enough to receive new police cars, we rotate 3 of the older ones that are on the line. We demark them, we keep some lights in there, and we make them unmarked staff car and detective cars. The 3 usually oldest cars that have the most miles, that are causing the most problem, then come from that staff vehicle and detective vehicle, and we then send them over to DPW and let them do what they wish with them. For the most part, for over a decade, we've been seeing that the 6-year cycle has been working for us. It's been a true and tried method. We've had a couple cycles in my history here where we have not received all those vehicles, and we've seen some of those vehicles that have started to get some aging to them, wear and tear, hours are going up, or we're starting to spend a little bit more money on maintenance. I will tell you that, and I've said this last year, that we did get a batch of cars that have given us problems that we have spent money on. Even though they're brand new, we've fought forward for warranty issues. We spent some significant money on some of these cars to keep them going. And at this point, we like to continue to look forward to replacing our vehicles to keep them top of the line in top shape for our residents to get our services. And I think to go into the Tahoes, we've seen other agencies around us that have been having problems with some of the Fords that have been exploring Chargers, Tahoes, as well as some Dodge Dakotas. We've been hearing some good news from the Chevy Tahoe package. It is slightly more expensive, but it is something that we're looking forward to exploring that option. Our maintenance team over at DBW has said that they've worked on the Tahoes that are in town already on the line, and they said that they're a little bit easier to work on and find parts for than the Fords. And another part of the Tahoe, although it's a little bit bigger than our police interceptor, it seems like it has a little bit more room and comfort for the officers. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot gist.
Any questions for the chief regarding vehicle replacement?
Just a question there.
Brad?
Sir?
Excuse me. Although you look at mileage, you look at hours of usage too.
Yes, sir. Yep. So we're looking at the mileage, and to bring the board or the committee up to speed, we also look at the engine hours. Many people, buy their cars and they drive them, 100,000, 200,000 miles, and that serves their purpose for their families, but our vehicles are constantly running 24 hours a day. Typically, for those of you who don't know, for the public, we usually run 2 different teams, so some are on days off and some are on shift, and we try to have 2 officers share 1 car in a 24-hour shift. We put that car to sleep for a day so it has time to rest, and we run another car with the other team. So those 2 officers switch those 12-hour shifts for 24 hours, and we tend to rotate that, and we try to keep the mileage and engine hours down. When cars are broken down or they're in maintenance, we then have to use those cars, so sometimes the mileage and the hours tend to fluctuate. There is an industry standard, depending on where you look on Ford's website, but they typically say for every 30 or 32, for every engine hour, it's about 32 miles is equates to that. So if we have some cars with, over 6,000-7,000 hours on it, that's equating to that many miles. Again, it's a little bit different than your average car. They're being driven at a different speed. Their braking is different, their acceleration is different, and they're constantly idling all the time. So you'll see that wear and tear pick up more than an average car.
Thank you.
Anything else about vehicle replacement? Jim?
So are you doing catch-up this year then from the default, and do we need to accelerate going forward if so?
No, we're not playing catch up. We're not needing to accelerate at this point. We've been very lucky where we're at. This year for 24 in default, we just did not have the right funds to pay for the Tahoes instead. The Tahoes were a little bit more money when I came into budget season. I had presented that number, and going to default, that money was really geared towards 3 Explorers, and even at this point, we did not have enough money in the default to buy 3, so we were able to talk to the board about using some funds in the revolving fund to kind of offset some of the equipment.
So you're looking for 2 Tahoes and 1 Ford?
Yes, the same I asked for 24, yes.
Anything else? Thank you for that. Move on to the next item, Chief.
So the committee, you might want to turn to page 3 on your matrix. And the police projects, line 105 starts with the parking lot extension proposed for 2025.
So this was something we've been putting off for many years, and in 24 I put it in. Going to default, we did not get the money allocated, but essentially if you look at our police department and you're looking at it from the front on Mass Road, we have a parking spot on the right hand side closest to the gardens. There is a grassy area that we have now made our parking lot for our employees, their personal vehicles, because we don't have space up top, in the back, and we don't put employee parking in the front for the most part because we want to make sure we have ample amount of space for visitors. What we've seen over the past years here is that lot in the winter becomes an ice rink. Our employees are parking there. DPW does their best to plow it and then put sand down. But we've had some issues where we've had some injuries there. In the summer, when employees' cars are parked there, sometimes the lawnmowers drive by and chip away at some of the vehicles. So we're looking to really pull that grass out, that loam, and level it off and try to make a more efficient parking lot out of it, expanding it to our lot line essentially. In some of the funding, we've talked, we could use some of the impact fees potentially to offset that. I've talked to Adam, my predecessor used to joke with Adam's predecessor about DPW doing it. It sounds like from years ago, DPW said that they don't have time to do that. So the idea here was to maybe have some internal design from DPW and then contract a company to come in and just dig it all out and then pave it. And if DPW has the ability to help us next summer or spring, maybe just grading it out, getting it flat, and contracting a paving company to come in and just really do it. We have some water mitigation we got to do back there, just to keep the water out of, make sure it's flowing properly. But this parking lot is desirable. It's kind of becoming a need because I'm seeing more and more employees out there parking, and I'm kind of worried that we're going to start having people get hurt more in the winter on that ice. So.
Questions?
I'm just curious, you're talking about the area between the garden and the police?
Yes.
department, right?
Yep.
And then, and that's for employees? Do they have to walk around the back of the station to get?
So they can come to that back door where the cruisers are parked, and we also have one door that's on the very bottom that goes to the basement. So they open that door, go through the basement, come out the stairs, and come out the back of the building. That goes into the locker room.
So if it's icy, they don't have to walk the whole length of the building outside?
Well, if we have the right people in the right places shoveling that back door and keeping that maintained, then no. But we don't have a landscaping or plowing crew that does that. It's really up to us to do it. And if our supervisors on like the weekend are out on calls and they're not able to come in and shovel, then yeah, the employees are gonna walk all the way around. They don't have to walk to the front door because we have that side back door that they can get into.
Okay, so you think this is gonna help that paving and the
I think what it's gonna do is help keep our employees that park there a little bit safer, and DPW be able to plow better than having that the ice luge over there where they're gonna be falling. And also not have people mowing the lawn back there while cars are parked there and weed whacking and stuff, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Brad?
The land there we abut is county land, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, chief, we'll move on.
Thank you. And anything else in there for?
That's it for 25.
Yep.
You have a couple projects, if you just want to briefly touch on them. in the-
So I'll talk briefly on 26 and 27 that potentially could move, but 26 I had planned, this is something we've talked about for many years, and it's always been kind of sitting in the back burner with the new potentially either expanding the building we're in or building a new police department, but currently for over 20 years our locker room is undersized, it's inadequate for our employees. Specifically the men's locker room is getting to the point where it's antiquated, it needs an upgrade. A couple years ago, we desperately needed to change the women's locker room. I think I came here for that. Was changed. We spent some money, gave the women about 100 extra square feet. We have 5 women that work there, some of which are nursing mothers, so they need a space that's appropriate for that. So the idea here is if we don't get anywhere with the building, as I've said many years, either having a site design or at least starting to break ground, we still have to work in what I always call live in the building that we're working in. And part of that is we need to do some serious upgrades in these locker rooms. This particular project, if you look back in history, my predecessors have put this on, we've taken it off, put it on, taken it off. I'm kind of standing fast that we need it. I'm pretty sure, I've said this before, I'm pretty sure the lockers that are in there are from the high school from probably the 90s, maybe even older. The women's lockers, even though we redid their locker room, we put the old lockers in. We need some new updated equipment in a better space. The shower facility is not as great as it should be. And we have some room to expand where our old gym is. So we're looking to see if we can get some site design done on that. This is something that we don't currently have a definitive quote for, but this is basically what we're looking at for 26.
Thank you, chief.
Yes, sir.
All right, what else you got? Moving on.
27, it isn't necessary, it's a priority. we need a new records management system. This is our dispatch system, it's called computer aided dispatch, or CAD, and records management software. The current software we have was instituted in 2013, it's coming to end of life. The main corporate company that owns this is now pushing a new system.
Of course they are.
Of course, and they are no longer going to be giving us updates, which eventually will put us out of compliance with CGIS and the FBI. So, I think, Jim, you asked me last year if there's something that needs to be pushed up. Absolutely, we could use it more now than ever, but with the respect to the taxpayers and the big projects coming, we're trying to push it out to different years. This also affects 2 of our mutual aid dispatch partners that we host their data and they use our service. So when we make those changes, we'll be bringing those partners in as well.
Will they be sharing any expense?
That is the hope, that when we
Okay.
do the contracts.
That's the end of that question.
Yep.
Okay.
I have a question,
Sure.
more for the selectmen. You know, that's a critical piece of our infrastructure, but we've seen the vagrancies of the voters. Is that a operating budget item, or are you gonna do, how do you wanna pay for this so that it will get passed and not just thrown into default budget and not?
We're not gonna answer that tonight.
Well, it's a rhetorical question if you want,
Thank
but
you. That's where I'd like to leave it.
But I want to make sure it's considered, because, you know, the alternative is to move it, if you move things forward and eventually they get passed, but if you take up in a one-shot deal, you gotta do it, and they not pass, and that's not a good event. So I'll leave that for you to ponder, as Tim hinted.
Rather than answer that, can I ask a question?
You sure can.
Chief, what does the note on the, do you have the, it says, include the estimated 86,000 recurring operating cost, what's that mean, cost in year 1?
So basically, like anything else, when we put software into our system, or in our department, it becomes a one-time cost, which is, we had a quote for this 737 or in that area, and then it has this yearly cost of subscription, right? So like, we gotta keep paying for that service, and that's basically what we're finding everywhere. And this was, the vendor, we had a couple vendors, but the one that really gave us a defined quote for this number, their operating cost yearly was $86,000 to keep that system moving forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now the biggie, go ahead.
Okay, so this is the police department. I'm putting it at anywhere from 26 to 29, and I'm putting it on the paper so everybody in town knows that we need a new police department. I put 26 to 29 because I think that as time moves forward, we need to start putting together a package for facilities needs assessment, building design cost analysis that we might potentially have to put out in 26, so we can have a better defined number of what it would cost to either build a brand new building or start to figure out if we need to add on to our building and what all that looks like. So really, the number I have in here, total project cost, obviously is a placeholder, but I did move it up from last year because I was informed that Bedford PD's project was somewhere right around 36 million, and Salem PD, who passed, was about $34 million. I talked to that chief the other day. We are going to get together to see what he had to go through. Quickly, he told me that it went to town about 3 or 4 times before they actually got it passed. But this is something that I think, real quickly, I know it's off in the distance, but our building has served its purpose. It was built in '87. It started to be designed in '83, '84. It literally cost the taxpayer, my understanding, zero funding. It was about $500,000 to build based on grants and some other land purchases. But again, when they built this, we had 19 employees. We're pushing, 32 officers and 14 civilian support staff. I think that our building has served its purpose. I look forward to the future of our agency in the town of Goffstown and having a building that can serve another 30 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're not gonna have long discussions. You may ask him a question, sir.
Come on, I won't say anything.
Sure.
I don't want to get into the projects that are out 3 or 4 years because they're not up for discussion for this year's sheet, so I would like to just limit the discussion. But if you have a question, I would encourage you to ask it quickly.
Nope.
Thank you, Brad. Chief, you have anything else? Oh, Danielle?
I just wanted to clarify, on the records management software, I know that's in 2027, but as the chief indicated, it could be moved around the matrix at the committee's discretion. That $86,000 is included in the 737 that's in the totals.
Thank you.
May I ask one more on that one?
Yeah.
Is that a project that can be split between 2 years, or is it all one shot?
I think that it's a project that we'd have to do probably one time, but I'd have to work with the vendor to see if we could split the cost up. Because I think coming in, setting the system up, migrating the data, getting it all done probably needs to be like a one-time deal. But then I think we'd have to, I think for cost-wise, we'd have to see if they would accept kind of a payment, a couple years there. So we also have, just a quick note on that, I had on the bottom of my sheet, we did get that CRF. So we are putting our dispatch contract money into this capital reserve fund that we can, hopefully as it builds, revolving fund, hopefully it builds, we can go back and tap into that money to help offset the cost of software as well.
Okay. Anything else for us tonight, Chief?
That's it. That's kind of the quick 30,000-foot view of what we need for improvements at this point in time.
Well, thank you very much. If we have any questions, we will have a return call for you to come back.
Thank you very much. Brad, you know my number. You can come ask me any questions you need, sir. Thank you all very much. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
All right, the next one up is the Parks Department tonight.
Tim, you should ask Eric, who's offered to set off explosions or whatever he does to entertain us. It still stands from other years. But
I'll let you ask any question regarding explosives in the police
well,
department.
usually he wants to entertain us, but we got away quickly.
All right, Rick, we have 2 worksheets that were submitted tonight. Are they for 27 and 28? Okay, they're out here. Thank you. For the record, sir,
Rick Wilhelmi, Director of Parks and Recreation.
thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. Let's see, 25. What we have for 25 is at Barnard Park to redo the tennis courts. That project was actually in 26 or 27, I believe. And we have moved that. It's line 152 on your matrix, I believe. So the commissioners decided to move that up to 25. Reasons being for that is we've been basically fixing cracks, filling the cracks, probably the last 3 years in a row.
Excuse me, Rick, 1 second. It's not actually
163.
Yeah, it's not 152. We get direct. Okay, we're down 163 for us.
Yo, 163.
Thank you, Rick.
You got it.
Go ahead.
So the reason it got pushed up is the courts need to be redone. The cracks just keep coming back. We're gonna spend $6,500 a year, and that's gonna keep going up. And the cracks are gonna get longer and deeper, because it's all the fill does is basically is a Band-Aid. Those tennis courts are a very vital piece to the community, very heavily used, not only by community folks, but also by the school tennis program. With the very large influx of pickleball at this time, and it's very large, it's also an opportunity to look at the layout of our current Barnard Park and where the tennis courts are. We can add 4 standalone pickleball courts, like in an L. I've also presented the total square footage beyond just the current tennis courts off to the side of it and all that. And I have a contractor looking at that and saying, what can we best utilize to still maintain 4 tennis courts And how many pickleball can we fit in? Can we get 6? Can we get 8? Talk to a professional that they know how to lay all that stuff out. So that's the project for '25. I gave you some estimates that were a '23, May of '23, so you can guarantee you that's probably what, $200,000-300,000 short. I'm looking to get numbers for that, more accurate numbers. I have not heard back from that yet, so.
So your $357,000 estimate is short, in your opinion?
Oh, yes.
So we can move that number through, but that's not gonna help you if it gets, you're only gonna have $357,000
Well, what I'll
So
have
we
to
need
do
to
is
revise-
your process ends when?
in September.
There you
late.
go. So by September, I gotta get a real number.
What's our schedule? We have to decide before we send it to the planning board. I would say August 15th is the latest date you could have it. That's the
I got a
vote
month
to
to do it.
finalize the matrix.
I got a month. Yes,
Two. Yeah, all the time in the world.
but, yeah, so.
Could you
Actually,
act-
go ahead.
How close to the neighbors would be the proposed pickleballs parks?
Well,
lanes?
are you,
I'm asking because,
conceptually though, conceptually, I'm gonna give you a
Conceptually.
conceptual. Okay, so you've been to Barnard Park, okay, you know the back end of the tennis court, all right? So it would run the back end of the tennis court parallel right over to the hill, to the toe of the slope over there.
okay.
So that distance where that current court is to where those homes are is basically that distance.
I only ask you because this is a very off-the-cuff comment. I read a lot of complaints from people that pickleball's noisy and they don't like it in their backyard. So just be
Well-
aware of that when you get your
Right.
professional designer for you.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of pickleball going on there right now, so.
Good. Okay.
There's actually, I mean, it's amazing. It's, the amount of tennis is very, you know,
So we'll be looking for an updated number for you before
Yes, sir.
August 15th.
yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, what else do you have for 25? Anything?
That's it. Yeah, that's it for 25. And then in the 26, I believe, there's nothing sitting in 26. 27, 28, oh, no, excuse me. 27 is
Rehab.
rehab of the waterfront. That's a placeholder at this moment. What the commissioners are looking to do is, over the next year, 2 years, is to actually sit down and use some monies to get a landscape engineering drawing of that, so that you can actually say, okay, you know, we're gonna terrace it this way, you're gonna do it, get some options, ideas of what you can do with it. That way there you can get a real solid number at it.
Good. That's what we need, solid numbers.
Yeah, I know.
All right, go on to your last one, Rick, there for 28.
28, 29 is basically your phase 2, phase 3 of the sports complex. That's kind of an interesting beast right now. Great headway, did some great stuff, phase 1. We're gonna finish up a little parking right now, which was in current budget 24. The interesting thing to me is watching our usage now. With the turf field coming in place in town, I want to get through a full season and say, how is that being utilized? Are these programs using that more for their games, etc.? So now that changes our mantra on how we need to utilize grass fields. Are the grass fields going to be 100% practice? Okay. Or do we still need to maintain a good grass field? And I know this sounds wonky and you may not understand it, but I don't have a clear-cut answer as far as where that will go. So we push that out. Let's see where this is all going to end up. Plus, the other side of it is with that acreage of land, the commissioners have looked at it, and we could, if the police department wants to put a brand-new police department, we could put it right over there, and we can still put in another field side by each. It all would fit. So there's some balls in the air.
Okay. Please.
Not a question, but more of a comment. You said it's wonky. I think it's smart planning that you're saying, wait till you get a year or two under your belt to see how the fields are being used. It makes sense to me that you're, it's fluid and wait to see what happens. So I just think it's
It has become fluid.
smart planning, yeah.
And the other process too with this whole deal thing was, the DPW is kind of coming around the circle here, using materials, sands, et cetera, for different projects. So we're kind of like in a holding pattern, for a better word, to excavate and slowly move that material around. So it's kind of, 28 is looking like a better time to look at it.
Any other questions for Rick on any of his topics?
I have one.
Go ahead.
I noticed on here you have Roy Park rehab, and I noticed in your note it says pool decommission in 2024, rehab redesign in park area anticipated in 2026. Do you have any idea what that number would be for
That's very fluid,
2026?
as we all know. That literally just happened.
Yeah.
Literally just
Yeah.
happened.
I know.
So, number one, what has to happen, and we're working on that with Danielle and the finance department, to decommission the pool. So we've gotten some numbers to, the demolition numbers from a local individual. So you have to remove the whole, it's all stainless steel, so you gotta get that out of the ground. You got a vinyl liner that's glued to the concrete and the walls, that's gotta get out of the ground, so you can't leave that there. So it's a rough number, just a starting number, you're looking at 137,000 to get all that out of there, okay, plus the building. The commissioners have been spending some time looking at its new purpose. Again, pickleball's huge, could become pickleball, could become a dog park, could become, they've been thinking of some out of the box things, could be like the inline hockey with boards during the summer months or whatever,
Yeah.
fill it with water, there's a new ice rink.
Yeah. You can
You
make
know
a
what I
skate
mean?
park and then you don't even have to get rid of the pool.
Well, I wouldn't do a skate.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
Anyhow.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Jim?
Well, what about the big animal, line 160, the Barn Park pool? That's disappeared off the matrix.
The Barnard Pool?
Yeah,
Well, they got voted down, number one.
yeah, but
Okay, but number two, I think again, kind of licking your wounds, for better words, right now at the moment. And that might be revisited later on. But to answer that question right at this very moment, Jim, I don't have a good answer for you.
Well, I think what Jim is suggesting, Rick, is that you have a lot of lines that are open out in the out years. Maybe you should put it in somewhere as a placeholder so it's not forgotten.
That's not a bad idea.
So why don't you you can resubmit something before we're done here, but you have,
That's not a bad
26 is
idea.
empty, 27 has $50,000. Now, you got two big ones coming up in 28 and 29, but even 30 is open right now. So
Yeah.
don't just let it die, move it out and keep a
Well-
submission sheet in place. Even if it never lives, keep a place.
It's still a need, so I think you should still
Okay.
reflect it.
yeah,
you can-
I think we're kind of licking our wounds right now.
but we identify needs, the voters decide whether they want them, but that doesn't mean.
Yep.
Like you say, we
Yeah.
don't decide on the numbers, we decide on the community needs and how to balance it in a matrix. So if you submit it, we will try to make it work for you.
Okay.
And it's not too late to do it, you can submit it to staff and give us a handout to put in our book. We had revised the matrix to add it into the right spot before the end of because we revised the matrix at least once or twice before we're done with this project.
Okay.
Process.
Very good.
Thank you, Rick,
Thank you.
Tim said it better than I did.
for once.
Oh, you don't have any vehicles either, right? Is
Okay.
that normal?
No,
Okay.
He doesn't need any this year.
no.
Okay, just making sure.
We're all set there, thank you. That was last, never mind.
The real question is, did police take their donut crumbs out of the glove compartment before they turn it over?
He's waiting for the hand-me-downs
Well, I wasn't sure
from
if like
police to
are-
public works.
This is gonna
to
sound like a silly
rec.
question. Are like lawnmowers vehicles?
No.
So they're
Or
not-
like tractors? Are tractors vehicles?
No.
They're equipment.
They'll go on the project section when they
Okay.
propose those, if they hit the CIP threshold.
Okay. feel like there was a trailer one year
Yeah.
on the vehicles.
That was
No.
long ago.
Okay,
That's
I'm
when
not,
they changed,
I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
they changed the threshold
Yeah.
of what was considered.
Like a vehicle.
Right.
So do we take out what we had before and put the new one in?
Yes, that's a complete take away whole thing, correct?
I just put it in front of it, that's all
Yeah.
I ever do.
Get confused easily, so.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a recycle bin, anything that needs to be tossed.
Okay, we have a resubmitted document to replace the one we have in our book.
That's correct.
Okay. Please begin, chief.
Good evening, I'm Sean Murray, the fire chief, and happy to be here tonight to talk about our capital needs going forward. If I may, real quick though, piggyback off the police chief when he talked about that software. I just want to remind you, there are dispatch also, and so the same issues he's having, we have. You know, we took care of a $1.8 million radio project. That system is working very well. You know, it's done a lot for the safety of everyone. But then when you have the software behind it for the dispatch items and that other part, that's critical. So I just want to let you know that I support his effort on that. So I know you want to talk about 25. Real quick though, I want to talk about 24. Our fire apparatus capital reserve fund failed at the ballot. We were asking for $250,000. So I'll be talking about that in a minute. And just for general notation for you, we do have a replacement ambulance to replace a 2020 ambulance that was in an accident. It was a minor accident, but believe it or not, it bent the frame. So Primex, our insurance carrier, totaled it, and they are going to replace it, full replacement. So it's on order, and we're expecting it the first quarter of 2025. So in a bigger picture, that's good for us because our ambulances are going to be a couple years apart, at least to give us a break, you know, and spread them apart if we have to later on.
Yeah, that's what you're gonna have to do. Because
Yep.
if they're all together, you can't replace all three
Right.
in a 2-year span.
Right.
You have to figure that out.
Yep.
Good. Okay, so we're gonna start with your 2025 vehicle, chief.
Okay, so in 2025, we have a replacement of a 2017 ambulance. We are seeking $350,000 to replace that.
In the memo, you don't tell us what the funding source is. Oh, it is, it's the other memo. EMS? That's
Yeah.
gonna be paid for with the EMS fund?
The EMS revolving fund, which, if you recall, we switched over this year from an enterprise, was it, to
From a special revenue fund to a revolving fund. So that means that the town no longer needs to ask town meeting every single year for permission to spend money out of that fund. It can just spend the money out of that fund for operations of EMS as defined by the fund's purpose.
Okay.
And then also in '25, we're seeking to replace a 2015 command vehicle. And we're asking for $75,000 for that. We did increase it by $5,000 because of general equipment costs.
But you're retaining the vehicle that you're replacing?
Yes. So I asked for, to keep a utility vehicle I had because I need one at the Pinardville Fire Station. And, you know, to help transport people, to actually pull the boats. So instead of buying a new utility, what I want to do is enter into a program of start passing those vehicles down after we replace them. So, you know, we've got command vehicle replacements a couple years ahead. and a utility vehicle, so we'll be moving them down and retaining them.
So that covers all the vehicles and the capital reserve fund for the, under the vehicle, fire vehicles section? I think you had 3 in for 25 that I could see. Am I reading it correctly, Danielle?
That's correct. The capital reserve fund is an increased amount.
So, because it failed, it does put us in a tricky situation because we have a new engine coming in '26, but even bigger in 2030, we have to replace that ladder truck. So initially that was about 1.1 million. It'll be up around 2.5.
Could you explain why you have to replace it? That's my big question when you're talking about a multi-million-dollar vehicle.
Because it's gonna be 20 years old. They run hard when they operate. They have very complicated hydraulic and electrical systems. And over the years, the ladders, they don't fail or anything, but they take some heavy use, you know. So the industry standard recommends about every 30 years.
And you're looking at a 20-year replacement?
I'm sorry, every 20 years.
So what happens to the tower when it goes away? Some other fire department buys it and uses it?
Yeah, or believe it or not, a used dealer will buy it and they'll ship it to other foreign countries, El Salvador, all those other, third world countries. We probably have a fire engine that we used to have down in, one of them countries, but that's typically what happens.
Okay. Any questions on the 3 requests for 2025 from the committee? Take your time and think about it for a minute if you'd like.
This is no budget question, but CIP fails, do you need to increase your request for?
For the CRF?
Yeah,
So,
not CRF, I'm sorry.
yeah, because the CRF failed, it's a $250,000 loss in the trajectory that was projected. So to increase that, as well as make up for the rising cost of this apparatus, adding $100,000 each year going forward is how we're going to make up that ground. Some of the tricky things to remember with the fire apparatus is large apparatus takes usually 2 years to construct. It's all custom built. So even if you're using the same template as you've used before, they don't build it until you've put the money on it. And we're finding that those timelines are extending as the chief said, the hydraulics and the electrical systems and pump systems are getting more and more complicated. It's also harder to get parts and pieces for a vehicle that's 20 years old. So it's something that we're very careful of, but we utilize that capital reserve fund only for the very large apparatus, and then we use tax appropriation for, a vehicle that's maybe a $75,000 utility truck, because that's more manageable, and we're trying to really reserve the saving efforts for those large purchases.
So line 31 reflects that makeup of cost as well as it's 350. That's
Right.
That's right.
It's
Yes.
the makeup
Yep.
cost, but also fire apparatus manufacturing has gone through the roof. We just took delivery of one that we got almost 2 years ago. We paid $705,000 for it. And the one coming up in '26, they're projecting about $1.1 million. It's crazy.
One other note, I don't see the handout it might have been in the packet you had, but did you include the spreadsheet that, the cover sheet that Derek provided on the calculation?
Yeah, I was just gonna, it's this one, right? The one that's at the back?
That's the fire department's internal matrix for vehicle upcoming. But we actually provided, and I can bring a printout to the committee for the next meeting. But remember how we discussed at the last meeting, the difference between saving in a capital reserve fund versus paying in a bond in the future? As an exercise with the fire apparatus, we showed how making these deposits of $350,000 in order to get us to the $2.1 million projected in 2030 would give us a savings at this point with a very conservative 3% interest rate as an average, would get us about $160,000 in interest. And I can tell you right now that our interest rates are over 5%, but using the 3-year average, we're at about 3%. And if you were to bond it, you'd be paying about $190,000 in, or $210,000 in interest, depending on what you get for, you know, again, using a three-year average on the interest rates for bonding. So it is about a $600,000 swing.
I have one other quick question. I know, so just so I can fully understand the ambulance CRF, so does that no longer come out of the?
That's not a capital reserve fund, is it? That's a,
It's not a capital reserve fund.
It's
The
a capital
ambulance is
revolving fund.
it's a revolving fund,
Right.
yes.
Okay, so ambulances no longer come out of the, I guess, the original CRF that we had before?
Nope, they come from the same source that they were before. The difference is, in the past, we had a special revenue fund, so when an ambulance went out on a call, insurance would pay that call, or the individual would pay a bill.
Right.
That money went into a special fund for EMS operations. In order to use the money, we had to get permission each year at the vote to take the operating costs out of that. And all that happened is it converted it to a revolving fund. So the monies that are coming in now, that are accumulating that fund, same purpose, same source of funding, the ambulance service fees. It's just now they can use it automatically. They don't have to go and ask permission of the voters, because the voters already said you can only use this for EMS.
So does that fund does not necessarily just be used to pay for a new ambulance? It's used for all ambulance
operating.
supplies, oxygen,
Yep.
you need
Part
a
of
new
the staff
stretcher in
salary.
there, something in there,
Yep.
okay, it's for all.
did it always start out like that?
Yes.
Or it got morphed into that?
Nope, it always started like
Okay,
that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're very restricted by law what we can use that fund from, so.
Yeah.
And of
Okay.
course, we gotta go to the board and go out to bid and everything.
Any other questions about those 3 items from board members? Okay, we'll move on to the capital project, which is out in 26, it looks like.
And that was also on page
116 on your matrix.
Yep.
Chief?
So, Mr. Chairman, tonight,
I have to update the matrix.
okay. I'm coming before the committee to shift our direction on the 2026 CIP, which is asking for $1.6 million for the renovation of the Mass Road Fire Station. Essentially, we have been for a number of years now attempting to, get ready for 2026 to do a major renovation. And the way our CIP and our future needs are going, I'm not very confident that that's gonna get through. And we're gonna end up being in the, kick the can down the road. So what I'd like to propose is, I'd like to remove the 1.6 million from the CIP and in its place, put in $120,000 to do 2 things. Well, the long-term plan is to basically do a study to see what the cost would be to renovate that fire station. There has not been a study, an estimate, or looked at for over 10 years, so the 1.6 really may not be a true number. And actually, they've been talking about renovating Station 19 since 2005. So I would ask we would seek a study to figure out how much it's to renovate it. And then what I'd like to do in the following years, that first year with the 100,000, I would pave and redo the parking lot down there, including the drainage. We have some real drainage issues. But beyond that, once we get the results from the study and we have an idea of what costs we're gonna face to renovate, I wanna break it up in the following years into small pieces and, do the renovation that way.
Well, I'm observing your other 26 requests on the vehicle side, and you have a very large appropriation request in 26 on the vehicle matrix.
Yes.
What would you think about moving that 120 to this year or out to the following year to try to balance things? Because your numbers are all skewed on the bottom there.
Right.
You jumped from 775 to 1.4 down to 370. So I'm thinking if we can try to balance that out a little bit, it might help with our process. Would you have any problems with moving it around if we asked to?
I absolutely would not.
All right, the committee will discuss this at a later time.
The better of the 2025,
The better would be to move it forward.
yes,
Okay, so we can discuss that when it's done.
okay. And then going on after that, just real quickly, 26 has an engine replacement.
Yeah.
Once we get through that, that buys us a couple years, because the apparatus will all be within 8 years of each other, and we bring them on a 20-year cycle.
What's your progress on the capital reserve fund to achieve the 1.1 you need in 26? How much are you short right now?
So right now, we have about 740 something.
750,000.
So if you got to 350 this year, you'd be close to the purchase price for 26.
Right.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So we have that, that engine there, a boat, but that'll come out of the budget itself. But we just,
The boat will be come out of your,
yeah, it's about $20,000.
it says tax appropriations. By that you mean it come out of your operating budget?
Yes,
Okay. Because sometimes tax appropriation means you raise the money to buy it.
right. And 2027, basically some small vehicles, ATV, all-terrain vehicle, and another boat. We moved that boat, the 2017 boat, out to 2032. We feel it's in good enough condition. They last quite a while, but eventually, when they're out in the sun, they start to break down. Same with the motors. 2028, we're looking at another command vehicle replacement for $75,000. We would do the same thing. We would trickle down the old one. And 2029, we have a forestry truck at $70,000 and a utility truck replacement at $75,000. And then 2030 is the big one. Matter of fact, too, you'll notice between 29 and 30, I have the forestry replacement twice. That's just a typographical error or a cut and paste error.
I only have it once. Oh, unless it's in your, on the sheet.
Do you see it under 20?
I'm reading the matrix.
Yeah.
Okay, under the 20, under my,
okay.
my submission form.
Right.
so. And then the big one is the replacement ladder truck. And our most recent estimate, and it is an estimate, it could be lower, depending on how what the market does. But we're looking at about $2.1 million.
Anybody have any questions for the chief? Danielle?
I know that there was discussion about the SCBA gear.
Oh, you're right, yep.
Is that going to be an additional sheet that might be coming back to this committee for an out year?
It is in there.
Okay.
it'll be in there for 2030. The self-contained breathing apparatus are the tanks we wear on our back for breathing air. They're coming up on about 10 or 20 years.
Oh, it's the last page, page 20 of 20 of the new sheet. So I'll add that to the matrix.
And so we would seek to replace those.
Don't add any more money to 2030, chief.
Yeah.
That's $300,000 more.
Right.
Quick question about that self. It says that the funding source is the CRF, but I thought the CRF could only fund vehicle. Is that just
Correct.
wrong? It's just a little typo.
Yeah, I think that's a copy over.
And what should the funding source be, Danielle?
It would be tax appropriation, so they would have to raise the funds.
Which one are you talking about?
It's
Page
not on
20
the
of 20.
matrix, it's a new one being added.
Okay.
20 of
Page
20.
20 of 20 of your
Okay.
handout tonight.
And
Thanks for catching that.
I'm sort of an optimist. I'm sort of an optimist too, you know, if you recall, that tower truck, when it was $1 million, was acquired through a FEMA grant.
750 of it, right?
Yes,
Yep.
I think it was 300,000. And we do look, the FEMA grants come out every year, assistance to firefighter grants. So I would imagine that when it comes time to replace those SCBA, we would attempt to get a grant, which those are the type of equipment that we seek grants given for.
Is it safe to assume you have someone that is actively reading and looking for grants?
Absolutely.
Good.
Yep.
Homeland Security, FEMA,
Yep.
all those, and those places.
And I don't know where it is now, but there is legislation at the federal level. They want to put some money into fire department infrastructure. So back a number of years ago, those grants, you could actually put in to have a fire station built if it was shovel ready, right? And a good example of that is Londonderry Fire. If you know, on 102, they have a fire station, and up by the airport, that was all from grants that built those fire stations, so.
Well, New Boston hit the home run as far as I'm concerned.
So New Boston has been trying to get a fire station for decades.
Yep.
And they kept going, they have a deputy chief that was doing some research and found a grant that because the New Boston Air Force Tracking Station is in New Boston, there are federal grants to support fire departments in their infrastructure, and they're given $9 million.
Save the whole tab.
Yep, yep,
God love them.
yep. So if you know any military installations, looking for a place, you know.
Town.
Move them right in. We'll tear down the high school.
I mean, you talk about a gift, you know, but
Don't put any ideas.
Anybody have any questions for the chief before we move on? If we have any questions, we'll call you back, chief.
absolutely. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for your time.
Thank you.
All right.
Do you need any extra copies of this?
I think everyone here, maybe just, Joanne, could you get one for
For Jack?
For Jack?
Jack,
Do you need
please?
one?
I have one, thank you. Julie?
Yeah, because we have a planning board meeting in between that I have to go to.
Sorry.
And, no, Jim's sure.
Sorry, I got a budget committee meeting on Tuesday.
Yeah. And we just look for a meeting on Monday.
It's a little political week.
Yeah.
All right, we have the school district at our next meeting, right, Danielle?
Yes.
Anything we need to be aware of before they show up, or are we all, it's all good in the packet?
It is all in the packet. I haven't heard of any major changes. There was one change that actually is going to reduce a number that we had in here. They had two versions of a form out there. And not knowing which one, we went with the higher one to put it on the matrix, but the school verified it'll be a lower number there. So I will have that update to let you, the committee, know which line it is. But we're expecting presentations by Randy Loring, the facilities, and Steve Bourget, the IT director.
Okay. Anybody has anything for this committee before we adjourn?
Well, I think you hit it on when they're feeling gun shy a little because of folks last year, but it's still our job to identify capital needs.
Yeah.
So they shouldn't be, I used to spread this message to them, they shouldn't be taking things off because they're afraid it won't pass. No, we still have to put it forward and let the budget committee and the selectmen, the school board, and then the voters, but our job is not to say it won't pass, so we're not gonna show it.
It needs to remain on the matrix,
Yeah.
even if it's not favorable to the voters that prior year. It needs to remain, because that's the only way anything ever gets passed, is to keep beating them up with it, unfortunately.
Virtually every school.
Sooner or later, people say, well, they've asked for it this long, maybe they really do need it. But it was good we got the explanation on the increase in the capital reserve request for the fire, because you don't generally get your money by asking for more the next year. But there's a valid reason for asking for more, and
Yeah, and we have all the calculations behind
Maybe-
it too.
maybe down the road they reduce it again after they get caught up, but
Yep.
you just,
There's the cost of deferring required.
Yeah,
I can't believe that ladder truck is already 15 years old.
I know. And we will continue to seek grants.
Because you used to be a kid with entirely brown hair, and I had brown hair, and
What?
that's the old-
You had never had brown hair, you always had gray hair,
Seems
even
that
as
way,
a
doesn't it?
child. Anything else? Okay, I'll ask for a motion.
So moved.
Motion's been made to adjourn. Anyone, second by Colleen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes.
Thank you, Tim.
Tim, don't forget